And let's do a roll call.
Sure. Chair Smith-Corbello, Vice Chair Collum, Commissioner Dawson,
Present, I am participating via Zoom because I am recovering from COVID. Luckily, it's a very, very minor case, but my husband and I both tested positive. Therefore, I'm here and not there.
thank you. Okay. Commissioner Humbero, Commissioner O'Neill here, and Commissioner Rath.
Here.
Commissioner Rodriguez has let us know that he will be absent, and I can go ahead and announce staff members present. We have Principal Planner Roveri and myself, Recording Secretary Barrera.
Are there members of the public or commission or committee that would like to discuss and stand out?
I can also let the public know how to join via Zoom if you'd like. Okay. Members of the public are encouraged to join our meetings via Zoom Gov, a secure service that connects you live with no lag time. This meeting is also streamed live on youtube.com/City of Monterey and also streamed on Comcast Channel 25. If you would like to provide public comment, please join the meeting using Zoom or by telephone, making sure to join in time to accommodate delays. To join the Zoom meeting from a computer or phone, use the link or phone numbers on the agenda posted at isearchmonterey.org. Since this meeting has started, you'll find the agenda under the Recent tab. To join by telephone, dial 833-568-8864, then enter the webinar ID. Today's webinar ID is 161-739-7120. To provide public comment via Zoom, please use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen. To provide comments by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand, then *6 to unmute when called upon. Public commenters will be announced using their last 3 phone number digits or the name typed into Zoom. Public commenters will be muted until it's their turn to speak. Please turn off TV or computer speakers or go to another room while connected, as background noise interferes with the broadcast. Public speakers will be called upon in order of hands raised. There is a 3-minute time limit for today's meeting. Please stay within that limit. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to open for public comments on items not on the agenda. Are there any public comments for items not on the agenda?
There are 3 attendees. However, there are no hands raised.
Okay, and we haven't heard anything over from the public that's not here present.
Correct.
Okay. And then we're going to open the first item.
Oh, can we first vote or discuss the consent agenda?
Certainly. We opened it. We just haven't voted on
The
it.
minutes.
The minutes we should do. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay, so has everyone had a chance to read the minutes for the previous meeting? Are there any comments or corrections on the minutes?
I found them fine. I'll move that we approve the minutes as written.
Okay, we have Carol O'Neill moved that the minutes be accepted and Kathy Cullum second. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
I can't, we'll have a roll call vote, right? But I can't vote because I wasn't there.
Okay. I will mark you as abstained.
And all things.
Okay. I can do a roll call vote. Vice Chair Collum, Commissioner Dawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Humbero,
Yes.
and Commissioner O'Neill.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries with a vote of 4.
Okay, the motion is carried. Then we'll move on to the first item. And we start with staff. Are you going to be the staff that gives us our report? And just before you start, I wanted to tell you, it was such an interesting and thorough report on the agenda. So I'm really looking forward to learning more about the building and about the proposal.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Fernanda Roveri. I'm principal planner for the city of Monterey. And the project before you is 486 to 498 Alvarado Street, historic permit application HP 230108 for alterations and repairs to the Alvarado adobe, and historic preservation report application HP 230109 for readopting a historic preservation report for the Alvarado adobe. The applicant is Cameron Davy Boone from AG Davy Limited. Owner Robert Y. Shear Trust. It has planned community downtown H1 zoning district, commercial general plan land use designation, exempt from CEQA per Article 19, Section 15331, Class 3.1. Staff's recommendation is that the HPC adopt a resolution approving the historic permit for alterations and repairs and approving an amended historic preservation report for the Alvarado adobe. Wait, I'm not screen sharing. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. Oh. Um, let's see. Commissioner Dawson, can you see the slides now? Okay. So a little bit of background on the Alvarado adobe. It is an H1 zoned property, which is the highest historic zoning in the city. And it was the home of Governor Juan Bautista Alvarado. I don't have the exact dates, but 1800s. It is a state historical landmark, and it is a contributor to the Old Town National Historic Landmark District. And this is a view of the Alvarado adobe from the south wall from Pearl Street. And this was taken from the original historic preservation report, which was adopted in 1998. On January 14th of this year, a portion of the adobe wall collapsed, as you can see on the photo. And the damaged area was approximately 16 feet wide by 10 feet tall. And it was mostly damaged to the first width, which is the first layer of adobe, the first vertical layer. The adobe wall is about 3 feet thick, which is made up of 3 widths. So 3 layers, vertical layers of adobe, one behind the other. Our city code and our historic preservation ordinance requires a historic preservation report and a historic permit for to allow and approve the alterations. The historic preservation reports, according to our ordinance, expire after 3 years. So in order to approve this project, the HPC first needs to readopt the historic preservation report. And the historic permit work must be consistent with an adopted report and the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties. The qualified professionals that prepared the application were Architectural Resources Group and Tuan and Robinson Structural Engineers. So the ARG prepared the updated historic preservation report and the architectural drawings, and the Tuan and Robinson engineers prepared the structural drawings. And this was a team effort with our building official, Lori Williamson, also in the meetings with the engineer, Eugene Tuan. as well as our public works and community development staff. So in order for this project to move forward, the HPC needs to readopt the historic preservation report. ARG updated it. And the first update was which of the 4 standards for treatment is being proposed. And while the building retains much historic fabric, over time it has been altered and converted to office uses. So ARG's recommended treatment approach is rehabilitation. The second part of the amended report mostly refers to the original 1998 report prepared by Edna Kimbrough, because that report has a very thorough list and description of the historic events that are connected to the Alvarado adobe. So the ARG part of the report did not duplicate that effort. The third part of the amended report is to identify the historic context and interpretive period. The repair project will return the building to its appearance prior to the damage, which is consistent with the broader interpretive period of 1883 to 1929. The fourth part of the report gives a brief architectural history of the adobe building. And it states that the historic elements to be retained and preserved include all adobe elements and the second-story frame addition, which was done at a later date than the original construction. And at the south wall, these elements would include a smooth plaster wall finish at the first floor and the wood siding, windows, trim, cornice, and parapet at the second floor. And last, the ARG amended report includes a program for preservation of the resource, including how the repairs and alterations would meet the Secretary's standards for the treatment of historic properties. The report says that moisture migration into the wall is what caused the damage, and that the cement plaster that was later added to the outside of the building is what trapped the moisture inside of the adobe brick. And so you'll see that part of the preservation program is to remove the cement plaster and replace it with lime plaster so that the adobe can breathe. So basically the project will return the building to its appearance and address sources of water infiltration. In order to approve the historic permit, the project must be consistent with all Secretary standards for rehabilitation. And in the agenda packet is a more thorough analysis of all of the standards. However, I summarized the main points here. The point of the repairs is that removal of historic materials will be avoided except where necessary. For example, the adobe bricks and adobe mud plaster will be repaired. However, they will need to be replaced where the damage exceeds 4 inches in depth. And the second floor will be strengthened with plywood and moisture barrier so that water infiltration does not happen from the second floor and trickle down to the first. The wood siding, the part that fell down cannot be repaired, so that is proposed to be replaced in kind. The historic trim, cornice, and parapet would be reinstalled. The historic window sash would be repaired. And the cement plaster, because of its incompatibility with adobe brick, would be replaced with lime plaster. the wood at the parapet panels would be sealed before it is painted. And so with that, staff recommends that the HPC adopt a resolution approving the historic permit and the amended historic preservation report. I'm available for questions, and the applicants and owner are here to answer questions.
Thank you. At this time, would either of you like to add to the report or representing your? Is that all right, Fernanda? Please.
If you can ask me questions first, and then we can hear from the applicant, or however you want to order it.
Well, if you want us to pause now and address what you said, we can do that and then ask
Mhm.
them to come up. So I would like to open it up to the commissioners because I think we should take a little time and appreciate this building. It's an important building. So
Yeah,
um,
I have a question about, so there's lime or cement plaster over the three, is it widths? So there are three adobe widths and then the cement plaster over that.
That's right.
So the cement plaster is not one of those three, so it took out it. So what failed was how far in?
It varies. There are places that the damage was only identified to be less than 4 inches thick. And that's the place where they believe that they can just repair that part.
Mhm.
And then the parts that are greater than 4 inches deep they would have to remove that width of adobe brick and replace it with a new width of adobe brick.
So when you talk about a width, I'm just trying to educate myself, is it brick and adobe 3 times, or is it just 3 layers of thick adobe? I mean, 3 feet's a lot of mud.
So the report said that there are 3 widths of adobe brick, so
Mhm.
3 vertical layers,
Yeah.
one behind the other, and each would be about a foot deep because the total width is 3 feet.
Mhm. So it's not just, when I think of adobe, I think of mud. So
Mhm.
this is brick and adobe.
It's a brick, yeah, it's an adobe brick.
Okay.
It-
All
That's
right.
about 1
brick
foot.
means it's in a brick shape,
Mhm.
but it's all
Okay, yeah.
adobe.
Yeah, but that's where I think of adobe as like what we see on the outside. So these are bricks and adobe. The
It's a
muddy
brick-
adobe.
It's a
They're
brick of
adobe bricks. Yeah,
adobe.
got
A
it.
brick, it's a
Yeah.
brick of adobe.
Right.
And I think someplace they did give the dimensions of these bricks in the report, but I
And
don't,
I'm guessing they were dried before they were,
oh, yes,
put up like a brick.
exactly.
yeah.
But it's,
Yeah, that's where I was going, is what's a square thing and what's a
oh, it's,
muddy thing.
I see,
okay.
I understand. I think it's interesting to think of this building constructed in 1834. It's in the middle of the Mexican period, and it is, and then he occupied it, I guess, from 1834 to 43. So nearly 9 years of occupancy. And it would have been nice if we could have seen what it looked like then when it was a home, and probably an office and maybe even a business. You know, some of these buildings, most of them had multiple uses, but we don't have that information. So whereas this is a very thorough report in many details, we've lost a lot of information because that early period wasn't considered so important. You know, gosh, nearly 200 years ago, is that right? It's a long time, isn't it? So it's, we've lost a lot of information because it wasn't considered important and preserved at that time, or at least, and we have very little written about the details of how it was organized as a home. at that time.
Can I just ask on the, and I think this came out of Edna Kimbra's report. Some of these illustrations, I didn't know which building was the Alvarado Adobe. Do we have that information? I know they came out of her old report. And some.
Do you
know,
have
just
the
corners of
figure,
the
do you have
building.
the figure number of that one?
Yeah. And then it just says it's a watercolor.
Oh,
Yeah. So, well, it's not an
But you,
important detail,
but
but
you want to know
well, I
in
just
the
want to know
figure?
in this watercolor, which building is the one we're focusing.
But
focus on.
say in the bottom which figure it is. They go by figure 1, 2, 3.
Right, and when it talks about the figures, figure 1 is California 1849 watercolor view by Sully.
And you're wondering which of the buildings in this,
Yeah. is
Figure
the
1
we're
is the-
talking about. And I guess we'd have to go back to Edna Kimbrough to,
it might not be the building that, it might not be showing it. 'Cause
yeah,
that,
okay,
yeah, that looks like Colton, the one on the right looks like Colton Hall.
yeah, that's what I thought. So I was wondering what it had to do with. Yeah, okay, it's. Yeah,
It-
oh, okay, just a period. Yeah, okay. Maybe I spent.
is
too
it
much time
looking,
looking at-
for example, would we be looking down Pearl Street there or Alvarado?
I think this might be,
And then if
I
we
guess
were,
Pacific, if that is Colton Hall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the other buildings around it don't seem right if it's
Mm-hmm.
if it's Colton Hall, that doesn't seem right to me. I think it would be interesting to have the building identified in the pictures.
Yeah, I liked figure 4 because it does say 1880, the Malera Adobe and the Alvarado
yeah, and
Adobe.
you
I
can
like
see it.
that
I mean,
one.
it's very
Right.
obvious in that, and
Mhm.
the figure 3 is also
Yeah,
clearly that.
Exactly.
Well, too bad they didn't invent
One.
photography earlier.
No, but it's a great collection of
Mhm.
pictures of this time.
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting to think of what changed in it. It seems to me they broke through, Pearl Street broke through and they took out a building to allow for the street to go through. So there were a lot of changes. So even if we kind of looked and had it identified, it may not look the same to us
Right.
because of that early change. Are there other commissioners that have some comments or questions about? Kathy, any questions about?
No, very thorough. I learned a lot. Very interesting, I thought.
So the other participants in this project, I know, I forgot your name, but you were called when the wall collapsed. So I think you were there at the very beginning of this project. Do you want to tell us something about your role in it? And then we'll yeah, state your
Yeah.
name and
Hello. Sounds like it's on. Hi, my name is Lori Williamson. I'm the Chief Building Official for the City of Monterey. And originally received the call from the fire department, probably around 12:30 on January 14th. Wasn't able to get to the site until 2 o'clock, but we had building inspectors on site, the fire department, public works. And by that time, property managers and the whole crew were there. Stayed there through about 9:30 that night just to see the contractors get the building shored up and protected and get some tarps on it so that the area would not continue to erode or spall. And it was quite impressive to see everybody work together. They were able to get the lumber company to open up on a day when it was closed so they could get the materials to shore it up. They had a contractor able to respond immediately. They had companies that had to come in and bring traffic control to, block off the streets. So it was a big response. It was well coordinated. And I think everyone did a great job at stabilizing the structure and preserving it to the point that today, you're able to approve the repairs, or consider that. So if you have any questions about the building or the structure, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Anybody, any commissioners have questions for Lori? I just appreciate the fact that you're here representing the city department that had to face having the wall just come down and had to deal with it. Doesn't happen very often.
It was a lot of departments, but yeah, everybody worked together and, wanted to ensure the safest possible outcome for everybody concerned.
I just have one question. Is there an emergency response protocol that the city has that you were able to tap into?
Yes, typically whenever there's any kind of emergency, the fire department's called out first. They assess the site, call in maybe traffic control, cordon things off. And then if they think they need a building official, they'll contact me or a couple of our inspectors. We're all on call. This winter, we had a lot of on calls for, trees falling into structures, that kind of thing, or house fires or, such. But that's the protocol. Fire department response, and then they contact us if they need us.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
And now we'll have a presentation by the property management company, Mr. Davy.
Good evening, or good afternoon. Thank you for allowing us to speak. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Chair, who's the building owner, Mr. and Mrs. Chair. They're not your typical landlords. It's, they don't have a bunch of buildings or investments. They just have, one property that they don't live in our area anymore. They've moved to the East Bay. But this is their property. And they've had it for maybe 20 plus years now. This was nothing that they could have foreseen. And when it happened, it was shocking. And thank goodness for a camera from our office and the city team that got there to make the area safe. And really everyone did so much amazing work when this happened. If you could be out there and watch what they were dealing with in the rain and it's just everything was amazing. And they were there late into the night, like you were saying it. They all worked very late. Surprising, I thought. And But when the process got going for the cleanup or to try to put it back together, there's a lot of safety questions. So the tenants can't just come back. And ultimately there's an economic issue. And I know that you have to decide things on more than just economics, and that sometimes they don't play a role. But for this owner, they play a big role. And in the process, the tenants weren't allowed in right away, which is normal for their safety, but they lost that income and had to make their mortgage payments. But you think you buy insurance that covers you for this stuff. So the insurance company kept saying they were investigating still. This went on for a very, very long time. So Mr. Chair went out and got kind of a hard money loan so he could pay for people, and everyone needs to get paid that works. That's just the way it is. They can't wait to get their staff paid and their employees, and the people that worked on Saturday and Sunday on site, those contractors did a lot of stuff. And so they were not wanting to wait months to get paid. So he got a hard money loan, and then finally the insurance company denied the claim. And some of the deny was kind of crazy. Like they said that it wasn't built to the current codes. Well, is that crazy? It's just so unfair. So because it wasn't built to the current codes and it wasn't built to withstand the winds that took place that day, and the current code says that a building should meet those codes. It's just frustrating. So we're stuck without insurance coverage, and we've tried to argue it a little bit, but you can't really get them to do what they don't want to do, I don't think. And so from Mr. Cheer's point of view, luckily his bank has been a good bank and they're talking about refinancing the building for him to give him money to pay for the repairs because there's significant repairs. And so once he gets if he gets a building permit, then he can get that done. And once he gets that loan, then he can order materials to then get the job done. And when they replace the stucco, I guess I'm stucco. What a terrible word. When they replace the adobe, it's a special material and it's about 6 weeks out once you order it. And so there's one tenant who doesn't get to use their full suite now. And then the parking is set up such that people don't have a natural walkway to the front. So it's affecting everybody's business. And so the one tenant that doesn't have full access and doesn't pay their full rent now, of course, which is normal. Anyhow, the long story there was just that it's been a real hardship for this owner. And hopefully we'll get to a point where they can put this seam behind them, but also have their building not changed because they just want their building to be the same. They have a very special building. And like you had said, you'd learned so much from this report. I've learned so much about a building I've been managing for 20 years. And when the engineers are there and they're climbing up above things and then down below and looking at these walls, I wish that they had left. There was a section where you could see the wall from a cross section and it got closed in afterwards. But I almost wish they had done something with plexiglass so that visitors could come to the bank and see this beautiful wall. Because the stucco is beautiful. The building is beautiful. Anyhow, the plan to fix this does go above and beyond and take care of what they believe was the cause where the water was getting in. There's various people with various reasons why they think the cause of this was, but they're going to take all the steps necessary, I'm told, to block future water intrusion, which is extremely important. And they're going to keep the building the way it looks for all of us, which I think is great. Anyhow, I appreciate all your time on behalf of Mr. Chair and our firm. We're very grateful for your time on this, and we just hope that we can get started.
Do you mind
Thank you.
stating your name?
Sure, it's Anthony Dabby with AG Dabby Property Management.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, questions or comments?
Good.
Is the applicant or the architect still online or the engineer?
Yes. Gary and David both raised their hands.
They're the architects.
Do you have a preference on which one goes
No.
first? Okay, I'll go ahead and allow Gary to speak.
Okay. Hi, my name is Gary Cole. I'm with Architectural Resources Group. So I'm the architect and project manager. And then the Eugene Twan from Twan Robinson Structural Engineers is our structural engineering consultant. And yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions. At the one thing about the thickness of the wall is it is actually very thick for one story adobe wall, but it used to be taller, and so they shortened the adobe portion of the building at some point to 1 story and built a larger wood frame addition on top. And so that's why the wall is so thick. And you can generally repair the adobe with layers of mud plaster up to about 4 inches. But if more than 4 inches is loose or has slipped away, then you do need to carve out the adobe brick and put in a new one. So that's our approach. We're anticipating that there may be some additional surface repair when we take off the rest of the stucco, but the major damage is where the plaster fell away with the adobe. And yes, just overall, we're planning on getting it back to its appearance prior to the damage.
Is there somebody that can address some of the efforts that were described in terms of restoring the building to a more authentic style in terms of the brick planters being removed and the wall in the front moving forward toward the street. Are you involved with that?
The engineer, I guess.
Yes, it would be probably the engineer.
Structural engineering mentioned.
Were you able to hear me? My on?
Yes, yes. So those are suggestions that Edna Kimbrough made in the original historic preservation report. In terms of this project, it is just trying to repair the current damage. But one thing that I think can be done during the course of the project is to investigate. This would be an opportunity to investigate the location of the door opening that's kind of on the former door opening that shows up in the historic photos and is on kind of the east end of the wall. So we can document anything that's left of that when the plaster is off, and in the future that could be useful for a restoration effort. But this current project is only to repair the damage and see and make the entire wall weather tight.
So let me see if I understand it. Your focus right now is to secure the wall and repair the damage and restore it, that wall, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so some of the other things described are not under your purview at this time.
Right, that's correct.
Okay, I was uncertain about that. The and an idea of having something to show the wall from the inside or the outside, does that seem like part of something you're considering, or is it just a nice thought? You know, a plexiglass or a way of viewing the adobe in some way, or a picture taken of it, at least so that people could look back and see what the adobe looked like under the lime plaster. I guess we're going with lime plaster.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I think. Is somebody else speaking?
I'm asking you, but maybe I should ask somebody else.
So
if that's something you're personally working on, or
yes, so we did talk about it. The wall is pretty exposed, and the adobe portion has a lot of during storm events. It's going to have a lot of water sheeting down from the wood siding portion above. So you know, it's had leaks in the past and just real problems with moisture. So our intent is to really seal it up, and I think having a continuous finished surface over the adobe is going to be the best thing on the exterior. Would be hard not to, it'd be hard to get a weatherproof installation by just putting some sort of view panel in on the exterior. And we're yes, and then I guess I would have to, in terms of anything on the interior, I think I'd have to defer to the property manager on that and how that might work with their lease and tenant.
right, I understand. And is somebody else also online?
Yes, David Wessel has his hands raised. I can allow him to speak.
Thank you.
Yes, okay, so do I put my hand down? Yes, okay.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. David Wessel, Architectural Resources Group, and I'm the principal in charge. And thank you for your attention to this project today. I'm happy to answer any questions. I think Gary's done a good job of explaining our intent here, and really what we're doing is repairing the wall according to the Secretary of Interior standards. And of course, we're anxious to get going because of it's the right time of year to be working on Adobe when we don't have any rain. And we do need to start ordering materials and get everything lined up. The Adobe units themselves will either be coming from Arizona or from Texas. And we want to get that in order in as soon as possible. The owner has been really wonderful working with and in understanding the preservation components of the project and how important this cultural resource is to the city of Monterey and to California. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions from the commissioners?
No, that was pretty.
I've said a couple of times, it's too bad we don't have information about more information about the earlier history of this Adobe, because it is one of the most important buildings we have from this period, the early to middle Mexican period here in Monterey. But you will probably document the work and take pictures of it as you go along, and maybe we will be able to have access to those pictures to add to our knowledge about it for people doing research, the type of Adobe, anything you can that would be that would add to our knowledge about the building. Is that possible?
Certainly, and I appreciate your comments because that's what we strive to do in any preservation project. And in particular, these type of projects where it's such an early resource, we always conclude the project with a treatment report. And so the treatment report will have photographs before, during, and after the work. We'll identify all the materials used, and we'll have all the details of the process so that anyone that would come after would understand how the preservation effort was undertaken and would know what materials specifically that we used in completing the work.
Thank you. I'm wondering if Carol Dawson, who's been listening but not talking, has any any questions or comments.
No, I don't, but thank you for asking.
She knows a lot about adobes and historic buildings, so I thought just wanting to give her a chance to participate. Anybody else have a question? Thank you so much for being available and being able to participate in our meeting. We appreciate you.
Our pleasure.
So the reason we're not getting a lot of comments from these very nice people that you see seated here is because it was a very complete report.
Right.
So
Very
if there were gaps, you'd probably have more questions, but it was well written and we had a lot of good information, and standards were addressed and everything was clear. So it was interesting reading for us. But I want to be sure that everybody gets a chance to ask any questions that they might have or learn more. If you just have a question you're interested in. Anyone here?
I just want to see them get started.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true.
5 months it's been, so.
But I think everyone's given this building good attention. And from the very beginning, when it happened with our city emergency personnel and through the whole process, it wasn't casually or, taken. It was considered important. We do have another person in the audience. Do you have anything you would like to add?
No, I was on site the whole time with Lori and helped secure an engineer immediately.
What is your name?
Cameron Gabby.
Oh.
Sorry, could you, if you're gonna speak, could you do it at the microphone?
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cameron Dabby Boone. I am the property manager for this property. I worked alongside with Lori the whole day, securing the engineer, the contractors to get the building secured, to work with the city to get the streets closed off correctly, which I know I learned a lot in my own just on traffic control, to get the K-rails, to get it safe because we didn't know if the building was going to continue to come down. And then to just relay information back to Anthony to work with the owner, to work with the insurance to try and get that taken care of, and to secure all my tenants, because of course they had items they had to secure from the building in order to continue to work. And as Anthony mentioned, you know, the biggest struggle for this owner has been the fact that, you know, they have not been able to do full occupancy, which means he has not been able to have rent. And on top of it, if the issues he's having with the insurance, it's been extremely difficult for him to be able to come up with funds to do everything that needs to be done. So the longer we wait, the more it ends up costing him. The sooner we can get going with, of course, the right approvals, so that we can get to the building department and get the necessary secured permits for that, and then get to bid to start construction, so that everybody can be back in, so we can open up back up the street. I know that the city would be very happy to have that walkway back, and we were able to get it down to the sidewalk, which was fabulous. But that in itself, the sandbags have destroyed themselves, and it's just becoming a mess. So we'd like to get it cleaned up and get it put back together as soon as possible.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. So I think I've asked you several times, so I think we're pretty good on this end.
Could we just check to see if there's any other public comments?
Okay,
Maybe.
Yeah, once again, I'll just remind the public how to join the meeting via Zoom. To join by telephone, dial 833-568-8864, then enter the webinar ID. A reminder, today's webinar ID is 161-739-7120. I don't see any attendees online with their hands raised.
okay. So are we ready for a motion? Is that where we are?
Okay, I'll move that we accept staff's recommendation to accept the trying to see what
I know.
exactly.
It's on page 15
No,
on the resolution.
okay, I was gonna say, I'm looking on the agenda.
Thank you.
Mhm.
The to accept the approve the historic permit for alterations and repairs, and to accept the historic preservation report that goes with the application.
Thanks. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
It needs to be a roll
And
call
it should be a
because
roll call.
we have Carol Dawson online.
And Carol will be included.
Aye.
So
Okay.
she'll do it by roll call.
Okay.
Chair Smith-Cabello,
Aye.
Vice Chair Collins,
Aye.
Commissioner Dawson,
Aye.
Commissioner Humbero,
Hi.
Commissioner O'Neill,
Aye.
and Commissioner Rath.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries the vote of 6.
Thanks, everybody, for sharing part of the story with us so that we appreciate the challenges for the owner. You know, I can't believe the insurance company isn't willing to work with this owner. So that's so disappointing. And I appreciate their interest in doing the best job that can be done with the building and taking care of it. And really, everybody's done a good job with this report. Thank you very much. So in terms of the agenda, right? We're back to the agenda today. And it looks like we just have informational reports, staff comments. Is there a planning office update?
Nothing other than what is published on packet page 93, and Erica prepared a list of historic and cultural events coming up this month. and in July. So if anyone is interested in any of those, she posted the links to the website, or we can follow up if there's any questions.
So that's on the last page. Thank you, Erica, for doing that. And that does help. We didn't have a meeting last month, so we didn't talk about Monterey having a birthday. And we did have a Mary and a celebration of Monterey's birthday last Saturday. And it was, from all reports, a big success and another year for Monterey. So I think people worked hard to make it a nice gathering, and we even had people from the ambassador's office of Spain there, some representing Mexico, military. We had a wonderful presence by a priest from Carmel Mission this time, and just a lot of happy community people that enjoyed the party. So it was great. I would like to say for the last few years, Chris Shake has prepared the food, and it has been excellent. And I'm trying to think what Jeff Krebs used to do. What was his title with the building department? I'm not sure what his title was, but he provides the wood for the barbecue. So it was nice to see him there and his brother bringing in the wood. Takes a lot of people to put it on, and it was a lot of fun. I have a letter that I received actually on Friday, just before the Merienda. And this person is a professional guide and works as a guide in the Monterey area. And I'll leave the letter with, with Fernanda, and, and I don't know how we should respond, but they're writing it to us, but they called us Dear Monterey Council, which is a little confusing, but they wrote it to us because they care about the history and the preservation of buildings. And you'll see why I think they meant us instead of the council. So they're concerned about attention given to historic buildings. One is the Cannery Row Historic Area. The markers for the canneries have faded away and are not as easily readable. The feeling is that they're being neglected. Hard to see the signage on Doc Ricketts, and the city is in charge of Doc Ricketts' lab now. And it's hard to find out if they're open or not, when. So also, the next one, they didn't have numbers, but just little indentations. The door has been replaced. I guess this is a Doc Ricketts with a very non-vintage door in color. And they're wondering why wasn't the old door taken care of? And they're concerned about the buildings across the street. There's in this plaza, a bust of Kalisa. Kalisa had a building. They're wondering what happened to the board that was there that showed the cannery. Was in a painting that was there in 1991. I'm not sure exactly what that's all about. Where Bubba Gump is now, it's she mentioned. So and so there's a list of also there was something that showed the train, the food truck, and was a historical history of the area. Maybe something, it deteriorated. They wondered what happened to it. I don't know. When you walk toward Monterey Bay Aquarium, there's a restaurant painted green. This is they're referring to Calisa's Cafe, and they don't think green was the right color for the building and wonder why it's painted green. It hasn't come to us, but it is a historic building, I think, and I don't know if paint is something that they had any guidance with. They think the color looks like guacamole. They don't, and it's not, and for a historic building, they didn't think it was very good. So I actually, You know, I think it's nice that they felt like writing this letter because it's nice to get public comments. And there's just a couple more things. There's one small plaque at the door describing Calisa's Cafe historical building. But they think it's, you know, I guess the feeling is let's not neglect it. Let's try to keep up the signage and the historic focus of it. Even though it often for us who live here, we don't go down to Cannery Row as much as tourists do. I think the intent of the letter is to keep our attention to these buildings, which are historic as well as interest the tourists. They also mentioned, just so we don't only talk about Cannery Row, they mentioned Casa Serrano's sign has faded and it looks neglected. So they'd like the sign it, you know, they're just wanting the historic buildings to be featured more. And I think the intent is we are such a historic city. Let's not take it for granted. Let's pay attention to these things. She emphasized it by saying school groups, local out of state people visit here. She does walking tours, so she is paying attention to the detail of the signage. And maybe we all should take a walk down Cannery Row and pay attention to some of it.
It's a local that sent this, a tour.
Yes, a tour guide.
Details the name.
It's from a business called Professional Guide Service in Carmel. And it's signed by Shirley Graham, who's a tour guide. And so I want the public to know, if they're listening, that we care about letters and messages that come, and it's been a tough time with COVID and other budget concerns. But it's always good to be reminded of the historic buildings and to thank her for the letter. So anybody, I guess we could pass it down and pass it over to Fernanda once you get a chance. And then anyone else would like to share?
It sounded like things I got at Carmel Heritage. That's why I was wondering if it was someone from Carmel, tell you the truth. I'm not kidding.
Well, I've got a couple things. One is the question is kind of for the city. We have the La Merienda, but does the city have they thought about doing something for people who don't want to pay as much to go to a fancy do for the city, and or maybe casual tourists or whatever, because we seem to defer just to history and art to throw this shindig, and then so I'm just.
I think that's a good question. Did everybody hear what she said?
Yes.
It's it would be nice to have more city support. The city had a big plan for our
They did
anniversary,
for the
and
yeah.
we were all looking forward to
Yeah.
that. And then 2020, as everybody remembers, was a big year for COVID, but not for the
Yeah.
celebrating 250 years of Monterey
But
history.
it might be something, we used to celebrate History Month week in October. And we have the Constitutional Convention reenactment, but I'm just throwing it out
Right.
there that something for the masses
Yeah.
might be appropriate. And you know, I'm not going to take it on, but getting partners and whatnot in the city to
Geraldine, when was the champagne toast and cake they had on the steps of San Carlos Cathedral? Was that a year or two ago? And that was for the birthday. It was a belated celebration, I remember, which I think anybody could have gone to
I hope
something
the
like
cake
that.
wasn't left over from 2020.
No, no, it was a celebration because they share the same
Right, birthday.
the same
yes.
birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's true, you know, and it's hard to answer all the questions today, but maybe as we move forward, we can have something that honors the birthday of Monterey that's a broader
Right.
scope. There was once a celebration outside the walls of the Memory Garden, and And we've actually looked into how that would look, or if it could be on the grass
We're
at,
a little people looking over the wall at the important people.
and see, that isn't good either, or something on the grass at Colton Hall. But when you
That
when
might
you
be a
try to
little
feed
better.
people, there's costs.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
so it's and everything's gone up, and the city is working with their budget too. So partners might
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
possibility, but let's just try to remind the city that people are interested in the history of Monterey, and they would like Monterey, the city of Monterey, to take care of historic buildings and markers so that people can find the historic part of Monterey while they're here, enjoying the tourist part. And maybe we can do something in the future that honors the birthday of Monterey that's more inclusive. Maybe it won't have as big a meal, but it will, something. We have had events here where they've served cake.
Well,
And
it
they have the
doesn't-
4th
I
of
mean, there are
July.
lots of ways to celebrate, and maybe inviting
Right.
symphony to play happy birthday.
They had a wonderful Memorial Day. I was here.
Yes.
Concert, right?
Yeah. well,
And people were here. The lawn wasn't as filled up as usual pre-COVID, but
Well,
and it was a little windy and cool.
Yeah.
But it was a beautiful celebration, and we're moving toward 4th of July and the parade, and there are more music on the lawn. So let's encourage all of those events that bring people together and celebrate Monterey in many different
Yeah.
ways.
I've got one other thing, and just if you don't get the Herald, and I may be the last person that gets a paper. In Monday's paper, they have had an article about Jane Smiley, the author, who's written a book about Monterey. And I just want to put this on the record. The first paragraph talks about Jane Smiley loves Monterey. She loves to wander around the picturesque coastal city, admiring historic buildings and appreciating their painstaking preservation.
So that's
So
positive. We have, what we have is because a lot of people have cared over the decades and have put a lot of attention, time and money into it, from the city to local people and local groups. It's really a team effort. And
our part in keeping.
And
yes,
keeping
it.
we're part of the team for sure.
Fernanda, getting back to Cannery Row, since I used to work at Monterey Plaza Hotel years ago, had a house guest recently, and driving through Cannery Row with her, I said, aren't those signs cute with the fish on top? Did the city do those? Okay,
Yes.
because
Wow.
they weren't there when I was working in Cannery Row. And so I always notice those now and point them out to people. I think it's very appropriate. So there's some upgrade,
But I'm taking note of the public
Oh.
comments, and I will follow up.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Kind of a sad one, but
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna be resigning
Oh,
because the happy part is I'm moving to Hawaii.
oh,
Oh,
so
wow.
sorry. Aloha.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I couldn't continue from Hawaii on Zoom.
Yeah.
Gotta be a resident of the city, but geez, we just got you trained.
So when does this happen?
In July, early
Oh,
July.
oh, yeah.
So this might be your last meeting?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess
no,
so.
this probably will be my last meeting.
Oh.
We have some meeting planned for July. That's before
Yeah, we don't know
I'm
yet.
leaving. But anyway, I just really enjoyed working with you all.
I think your microphone is off.
Oh,
Is
no,
it off? Oh,
I might,
Yeah, you have to hit the button there.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, so I really appreciate how much y'all cared for the little cottages. Not that we got a lot of traction for that, but one thing I have to say is that cute little blue one on Foam Street
Yeah,
is being restored.
yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I understand.
So I don't know how it will actually look, but it looks like they're just doing a straight up restoration, which is nice.
It is
That's
nice.
good.
That's some
Yeah.
success,
Positive.
Yeah, very positive. And, I was born in Monterey, so I love it here. But I'll be coming home to visit.
Good. Well, thank you
With a
for your
tan.
service on the commission.
Oh, you're welcome.
We've appreciated working with you the last
my
few
pleasure.
years. How many years? 2 or 3, 4 years?
I don't know, sometime during COVID, because I never came. Remember, I never came
We've
to a
only actually
meeting
met her
until.
once or twice, so.
Yeah,
Gotta
yeah,
struggle
we
back.
met her and then we went into COVID. I think
Yeah.
that's true. I think that's right. Well,
Yeah.
it's been nice to see you lately.
Yeah.
In
the
person.
pool.
In the pool, yeah. So thank you.
Enjoy your cruise.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here online, Carol, and everybody who's here in person. And we'll look forward to the next meeting in July or August as things come up.
Yes, as projects come up, we'll send a notice for this next meeting.
Okay, so we're ready to close the meeting?
Get better soon, Carol.
Yeah.
Yes, Carol.
Yeah, you look
Both
good
of you.
on
You're
in
fine.
the picture. She's not on.
Glad it was
Okay.
mild.
Okay, then we'll go ahead and close the meeting. Okay, the meeting is closed.